Okay, my friends, yes, indeed, it is indeed time once again for Open Forum Thursday. I'm your host, Pastor J Stan McCauley, and I want to invite you to sit back, relax for the next hour or so as we continue our journey, as we explore the things that make life worth living here in the greatest city on earth, Hartford, Connecticut, New England's rising star. How was your holiday? I hope your holiday was half as good as mine was. If it was, you had a fantastic holiday. And I guess can't ask for much more than that. So we'll start the program off saying Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Three Kings Day, Happy Kwanzaa, and a Happy New Year. We'll get them all out the way at once. A festive holiday season to you and your loved ones, here, near, far, and wide. Okay, got a lot of things happening this week, so I want you to just sit back, relax, grab your favorite beverage. Mine is this right here. It's Mountain Dew Black Label. It is not a alcoholic beverage. It is soda. And so those of you who've watched me over the years know I like Mountain Dew. This is the best Mountain Dew formula they've ever had, as far as I'm concerned. But that's me. What can I say? Right here, let's get started. We do this one thing, and then we'll be set on our way. It's called the Big Share. That's where we share the open forum experience with friends, family, and foe. We try to do this once a week so that we can have a conversation about all the things that matter most. Those of you who watch this program, and those of you that live in the city, should be aware that I am running for mayor of the city of Hartford. And this is where I have my weekly conversation with those of you who are interested in having a conversation with me. So, give you the number in a little bit, and we'll invite you to make your phone calls. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about tonight. I will stay as long as the calls warrant it. All right? So when I run out of information, which is right here, my stack of all kinds of information that we said that we would talk about, then we'll move on. Now, we'll take phone calls, and I'll explain how we do the program once we bring everybody on board. All right? I can't share the live experience until we're on the air, and so that's why we do this portion of the program that we call the Big Share. All right? So let's get underway with it. First, we want to share the program with a couple of great Facebook pages. The first one is Hartford's most influential Facebook page, which is Hartford Dwellers. Like it or not, it is the quintessential #1 Facebook page and most influential page in the city of Hartford. Okay. Next, we want to share with a couple more Facebook pages. Also impactful in its own way. It's not quite as controversial, and that, of course, would be a dwelling in downtown Hartford. Share with them. Also want to share with dwelling in the north end of Hartford. I tell you these different pages so that you can check them out, as well as share your information there, because they're great places to share information. They're also great places to get information. All right. Next one to share with where they do that at in the city of Hartford. That page was started by a young lady. Her name is Shonda Barlow. We've been sharing with that page as long as I have been doing broadcasting on Facebook. All right, so there we go. Share with Shonda Barlow. And it's been a long time. We were one of the first to start doing stuff like this. Okay. Next one to share with community block watches in the Clay Arsenal community. And started by Evelyn Richardson. Next one to share with independent thinkers. All right, independent thinkers. Okay, that's a group share. You share with a group here. All right, and that would be IND, independent thinkers. That's a new group. There's not a whole lot of members there, but it's growing. You know, it's like organic growth. All right, want to share, of course, with our own group. And when I say our own, I mean Access TV network.org. The Access TV network.org virtual television network group. All right. Next, we want to share with, let me make sure I have the big share cheat sheet is right here. So I make sure that I'm sharing. Downtown Dwellers, where? Yep. Access TV. Okay. Yep. Okay. I share always with two gospel-centric groups as well. Okay. So those groups are Ministries of the Living God. Right, we have a very broad and diverse community here in Connecticut, and particularly here in Hartford, 76 different ethnic groups. And not to mention all of the different diverse segments and subcultures within each of those groups. And that's what makes a life so wonderful. It's the depth and the variety of people. All right, next, let's hear one more group, I think, and that, of course, is New England Women and Men of God. All right, there we are. Okay, let's see here. Who's next? Let's share next with a page that would be our own page, the accesstv.org. I don't know why I always share with the networks pages like last, and one would think I'd share with them first. All right, so share with the Connecticut Black News Network. That's another accesstv.org asset, as they say. And next, we want to share with PageWise. I had to do better managing my music here. Hit me. There we go. That'll give me some length. I'm running out of music. All right, let's see here. Where were we? Pages. Page shares. We'll get it together. OneHartford.com. All right, that's also a Facebook page. Actually, that's the official page for this program. All right, is OneHartford.com. All of the past programs are there. And what makes that kind of unique is because it's a program that talks about all the different subjects, all the different issues, things along that line associated with life in Hartford, particularly when you look at it through a political lens. All right. A couple more pages and then we'll be all set. I think this is a significant page. McCauley for mayor. A little self-serving, but that's why we're here. All right. Post. Transparent, right? All right, two more and then we're done. We've got to share with friends, family, right, and foe. So let's share right now with a couple of friends. Friends' timelines. I don't share on everybody's timeline. I only share on one person's timeline because you have to be real careful about sharing on people's timeline. All right. Next, we're going to share on my children's timeline. That's the family. So we'll share on some children timelines. Since it's holiday season. Share, that's one. Share on two. Oops. Friend timeline. There we go. One son, one daughter, and one more son. Share. There we go. Well said. That takes care of that. I think I got everything for the big share. You know what I'm going to share with women of political power? I don't know why. I just decided I'm going to share with that. I'm going to share with that group too. I'm sure there's some foe in there, so I want to share with some friends, family, and foe, right? So let's share here. That's a group, right? All right. All right, let's get started. Um, I have a lot of stuff to go over. Lots of stuff. A lot of stuff happening. A lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. We had a question that was out there. What else did we have going on? We have an incident that happened last week. I actually saw the incident happening. I didn't know what it was. I was on my way to pick up Rosie. Rosie is the name that we have. My car. I have a 25-year-old car. My car's 25 years old. 26 years old. And it's an old diesel, an old Mercedes diesel. Someone told me they called it a humble Mercedes because it's so old, you know. Depending upon who you are and what you are, if you drive around in a real nice car, it could be more of a hindrance than anything else. So I have it's an old car. And it acts like an old car, too. Okay, but Rosie was being fixed last week. It had leaky fuel, and what else? It was leaky fuel, and fan belt shock absorber. Because the fan belt, there's a tensioner that keeps tension on the fan belt, and then the tensioner, there's a shock absorber that absorbs the tension. Well, it was broke. So I had to have it fixed. So long story short, I was on the uptown bus. I think it was the 42. I can't remember which one it was, but it's going down, down North Main Street into the red zone. All right, because we have redlining here in Hartford, as they do in most cities. There's the red line. And I was taking the bus north into the red zone, past the red line, just on the other side of the stadium. And I was downtown from the Gold Building. And in fact, I was on the bus, and Brother Calvin X Lovejoy was on. His wife was on the bus, and she. I don't know whether she was on the bus after this event or during the event. She might have just got on the bus, I think. Anyhow, there were cop cars coming from I thought they were robbing the People's Bank. There had to be 20 cruisers. They were coming from everywhere. From everywhere. It was almost as though every police car in the whole city was like downtown. Now, that's an exaggeration because we're not Manchester, so we have more than eight police officers on a shift at a time. They were coming down there like out of nowhere. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? So I called a good friend of mine who is always plugged in as to what's going on with the police department and other public safety things in the city of Hartford. And of course, tonight we're talking about public safety, which is why I bring this up. And he mentioned to me that, something had come across the radio, but he really wasn't paying too much attention as to what it was. But we'll get back to me later on in the day. I just knew it was someone, a bank robbery. He said it was a disturbance of some kind. I didn't give it a second thought until last night. And last night, someone tagged me in an incident that happened with a guy, Ike Herbo, and he plays the trombone. And you've probably seen him downtown if you go downtown. And his account of what happened, which is right here, is not a good account. And so we're going to go over that. It turns out that the incident that I had witnessed was him being taken down. Now, I've been told what happened. I've been told what happened relative to the incident report, but I haven't gotten a copy of the incident report, and it hasn't been posted online as of, to the best of my knowledge, because I haven't been able to check since like a half hour or so ago. All right, or maybe an hour ago when I was in the studio. But the incident report will be posted, and you probably can find it on Kevin Brookman's site. Okay, so see what the incident report says. All right, because there's always two sides to every story, and we have to be fair all the way around. But I don't know that all that was necessary for a guy with a trombone. So we'll get to that tonight, too. We're going to be here a long time. We're going to be here a long time. We'll get to it. All right? We're going to talk about traffic, talk about public safety, talk about Ike Herbo. I'm going to answer my question that I put out there for you all. And then we're going to talk about community policing. Like, what is community policing? Why is it important, and should it be happening? Okay? Now, there's pros and cons of community policing. You know, sometimes it seems like it's a no-brainer and we should have community policing, but there's also drawbacks to community policing. We'll talk about that, all right? And the reason I'm going to take my time to go over this tonight, even though some of you will tune out, because that's the nature of this type of programming. People tune in and people tune out. It's like extended talk format. You know, like talk radio, talk television overnight. People tune in for 10 minutes, they drop off, they come back, they go in and out, in and out. And then there are those people who stay through the whole program. But in doing these programs, I want to give a public record on where I stand on a whole lot of different policies. And then they're all posted onto my website at McCauleyforMayor.com under television shows or plans and policies, whatever the case. But they're all there, all right? So today is number 3. Number 3 in my 5 items, priorities, all right? I believe that there should be 5 citywide priorities, all right? Because, you know, there's no end to issues. No end whatsoever. And one man's issue is someone else's. They could give a, you know what, they don't care. And so, you know, issues are always important to the individual. And if you ever want to know where I stand on a particular issue, you can always call me. My number's always posted. That's my cell number. And I'm always willing to talk to you and take your calls. If I am busy, like in production, on location, doing a shoot, I just want to answer the phone. That's all. You can leave a message, I'll call you back. I'm real good at returning calls. All right. So let's get started. First thing we can talk about is traffic. Traffic. There was another shooting today. One of them, unfortunately, ended in a homicide, death. Somebody died. The other person taken to St. Francis. The person that passed away apparently was shot in the head. So there've been a lot of gunshots. Now, I don't know what the murder rate is in Hartford. It's got to be up there, though. It's got to be up there. I'm sure it's as high now as it was when Pedro Segarra was mayor. And now, of course, Luke Bronin is mayor. I take the one rare occasion of mentioning his name on the program. He's the mayor, and I remember when he was running against Pedro Segarra, Mayor Segarra, and he was talking about how crime was such a horrible thing, and it needed to be dealt with. And he put a lot of that weight on the current mayor. And it's always been my position, and I've been very, very public about this, that the mayor has very little impact on whether or not people get shot because, it's out of his control. And politicians who want to go down that avenue do so at their own peril because, of course, when it's your turn to be mayor and the same thing starts happening, do you hold yourself to that same standard? And so that's my question to the current administration that got into office talking about how bad crime was in the city. Are they going to hold themselves to the same standard? I would expect nothing less. But if you look at the number of people who have been shot and you compare that to the number of shots fired in Hartford, it pales in comparison to what's going on with traffic. This is Connecticut Crash Data Repository, which is up at UConn. Aggressive driving crashes in the town of Hartford. In 2017, there were 2,107. Thus far this year, 2018, there have been 1,642 aggressive driving crashes in the city of Hartford. Aggressive driving fatalities in Hartford. In 2017, it was 5. This year, 12. 12 people were killed because of aggressive driving fatalities in the town of Hartford. Now, this is a grave public safety issue. Now, if you consider that there's been 1,642 crashes because of aggressive driving in a town that is as big as O'Hare International Airport, this is a walkable city. Now, you can walk from, the south end down by the old Mark Anthony's. I think it used to be Mark Anthony, down by Metzner Center. If you go all the way down by Metzner Center, but on the Weathersfield Avenue side of Metzner, all right? And you walk down Weathersfield Avenue to where it turns into Main Street, and you just walk all the way up North Main Street till you get up by the old Wilson place. Okay, right where you cross over into like Windsor, up by the old Fuller Brush building. Okay, there's a mobile station there that's now open 24 hours. It wasn't open 24 hours until the Wizards of Smart shut down a lot of the different establishments. When they shut down the establishment over there by the West Indian Club, that's a Noble station over there. When they shut that down across from the old Jerry Mack, when they shut that one down, the gas station up the street that's just over the border decided, well, we may as well open up because we'll get the windfall. And indeed they did. But if you walk that, I think you walk it 45 minutes, no more than an hour. No more than an hour. Okay, and that's at a normal rate. Alexa, what's the average walking speed of a human being?
A person's top speed is 10.4 meters per second.
10.4 meters per second. We won't do the math. I don't want to over geek the process. But you do the math. You can figure it out. But if you're a walker in a town where most of the people here travel by bus, all right? Most Hartford residents travel by bus because they don't have a car, all right? And you live in a walkable city. And with the multimodal transportation, biking, walking, busing, All right. How many of the street crossings are designed for pedestrians relative to cars? These are serious issues, particularly if you're the majority of the individuals in town. Now, there's a large portion of our commuters, people come into the city to work, and then they walk around downtown. Right? I think that's one of the reasons why they had such a strong police presence when we had this guy maybe not acting right when they were trying to get him to move. Okay, the trombone player, because he could be a threat to outsiders to come into town, and so you at all costs you protect your most valuable residents, which aren't residents at all. They're temporary residents when they come into the town during the day. But that's another subject for another day. We want to stay focused here, okay? But if you're a walker, you can get killed. There's a high likelihood that you could get killed by a car, considering the number of aggressive drivers driving through the city, minding your business, crossing the street, someone running a red light, bicyclers are hit by cars, all right, who don't respect bicyclers on the road. Now, I ride my bike. Okay, I ride my bike. I had a long conversation with a political operative tonight who was telling me, he says, please tell me you're not going to be riding your bicycle around the city when you run for mayor this time. There's a practical reason for riding around the city on a bike. It's a lot easier to knock on doors and to get from one end of the street to the next end of the street by bike than it is by walking. All right, so, and biking is good exercise, and I'm a supporter of bicycling. I have been since I came to town in 1979, been riding a bike. Okay, so you ride a bike, you get killed on a car. Former city councilman Mike McGarry was almost killed when he was hit by a car on his bike up there on Woodland Street by the Mark Twain House and Farmington Avenue. You could get severely injured. Now, I say all this because, a lot of times, cities have traffic divisions. And I don't know. We're going to find out this information. We got a long way to go between here and the middle of the year, most certainly between here and November. But we're going to get some people in here. We're going to talk about public safety, and we're going to talk about talk about some deployment strategies as it relates to traffic. And we're going to get an expert on. We're going to get an expert, because my opinion is not expert when it comes to policing and police strategies and the deployment of these types of things. All right. So I defer to the expert. The thing is getting the right expert in here to do the job. Right? Almost like getting a world-class economist to help you figure out how to get out of the debt that you're in. I'm just saying. Aggressive driving injuries in the town of Hartford. 754 this year, 974 last year. This year, 754 injuries as a result of aggressive driving. Aggressive driving injuries in the town of Hartford, 700. 754. Alexa, what is 754 divided by 52?
754 divided by 52 equals 14.5.
14.5 people a week. Now, if there were that many people being shot, it'd be all over the news. So you have 754. This is not my opinion. This is UConn. It's Yukon. Crash Data Repository. The Connecticut Crash Data Repository, which is up in Yukon. Yukon got a little branch downtown Hartford, right behind City Hall, an old Times building. I remember they was trying to take some of those street surface spots, but people spoke up and they kind of backed off of that. Yukon is written into the state constitution, by the way. It is. Yukon. And so is Yale. They're written into the state constitution. You know that the state of Connecticut's responsible for educating children? Article 8. So crashes, aggressive driving crashes in Hartford, 2018, 1,642. Number of fatalities, 12. Number of injuries, 754. DUI crashes in the town of Hartford. This year, 65. DUI. So there are less crashes as a result of DUI and more as a result of aggressive driving. Now, I would imagine that's also people running into cars and, you know, you have to call the police and, you know, issue citation or, you know, for your insurance purposes, this, that, and another thing. But they're crashes nonetheless. But 65 as a result of driving while under the influence. DUI, driving under the influence. All right. This would be alcohol. I don't think it's marijuana. It could be. All right. You're not supposed to be driving while you're smoking weed. You're supposed to be home, medicating, in your little private space, right? All right. I had a lot of friends that smoke weed. I don't smoke weed. Never tried weed. I didn't like inhale, but not inhale and all that other kind of stuff. You know, I'm pretty straight-laced. You know, it seemed to me it's just not natural. I go out the house, breathe in fresh air on the mountainside, and you roll up a spliff and fill your lungs with smoke. Just something inherently not natural about that. So that's me. I'm only speaking for myself. Okay? Live and let live. But I have friends that smoke weed. I make them uncomfortable. So every time I've ever been any place where folks smoke weed, because I got friends, I got all kinds of friends. Now they don't shy away or change up because man, just let me know. Look, we can really smoke weed, so you might want to roll. Not you might want to roll. You might want to roll. You might want to leave because we can really smoke weed. And usually, you know, until lately, that was an act of illegal. You know, it was kind of like illegal. So, you know, who's that at the door? My weed was at the door. It's time for you to go, Stan. All right. Thanks for letting. So I roll. I go. Weed is not new, though. Weed's been around a long time. I'm almost 60 years old. I'll be 59 in January. Okay. I remember as a child going to events with my mom where there were doctors. My mother was a child psychiatrist. And the doctors would be in there smoking weed. You know, the kids get together, they go into some room where the kids play. I don't know what, I don't think my mom was smoking weed, but the other doctors were smoking weed. I have to ask my dad about that. Things you don't know about your parents, you know. All right. Fatalities, 2 people killed. 2 people, fatalities. All right. Injuries, 66. All right. So 66 people were injured while driving under the influence, right? There were 66 injuries associated with DUI. Crashes, there were 65. 65 crashes, all right? So it's fair to say, on average, everybody driving was injured. Now, there could be 6 or 7 people in a car, 3 or 4 people in a car, and so all 4 people could get hurt in one car. There could be a crash and no one gets hurt, all right? But the number in this year, all right, last year was 80, but this year it's 66. Speed crashes in the town of Hartford. Now, this is where this speeding, people speeding in Hartford. I think there's a citywide speed limit of 30 miles an hour. It might be 35 in some places, right? It might be 40 over things like the bridge down there by, I think it's the Whitehead overpass, all right? Or Reverend J. Moody overpass. One of those. I think the speed limit goes up. Then when you get off the, you know, coming around by that back behind the successful stadium that every politician in Hartford was against. They were against it before they were for it. Now everyone's for it because of its wild success. But if it was up to them, there would be no success that would be wild because it would have never gotten built. Right? Real talk. But you come from the meadows through where all the car dealerships are. You know, the Mercedes car dealership is there, and the BMW. Then the little overpass comes back behind the, you know, the outdoor music center there, and you come around. I think it's 40 miles an hour over there. But once you get off of it, it drops back down to 30. Might even be 25. I think it's 30. So there's no reason for anybody to be speeding in Hartford. But we all know that speeding is a huge issue in Hartford. How do we know this? Because everybody wants a speed bump. Speed bump is the new political status symbol, by the way. If there's a speed bump on the street, do know this one thing for certain. Someone that's got political connections lives on that street. That's how you get a speed bump. If you don't have political connections, you can forget getting a speed bump on your street. They'll tell you they're going to put one on there, but then they'll come up with an excuse. They ran out of money. The traffic engineering study didn't come through in time. Or we had money, but it was only allocated for speed bumps. We're already on board. So we couldn't put a speed bump on your street, but your street is on the list. And next time, you can almost be guaranteed you're going to have a speed bump. That's what we call a carrot, right? So you put the little stick on the carrot. The donkey keeps walking because he doesn't have enough sense to know that he can't ever reach the carrot because the carrot is on the edge, is on a stick. You know, this is the stick. All right, a little drama. All right, long form talk doesn't work if you don't have some drama. You got to spice it up a little bit, right? All right, so you have the stick, and you put the little carrot on the stick, and you tie it to the donkey head. For those of you who are ebonically challenged, the donkey's possessive, the donkey's head, and the donkey walks after it, and he just keeps walking. He doesn't have any sense. Now, sad to say, there are some people in Hartford that are just like the donkey. People keep promising there's going to be change. There's going to be change. There's going to be change. Well, there's going to be change. They keep electing the same people that promise change, and what happens? Nothing. 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 Okay? You're being played. So, you know, at some point you have to wonder, is it the politician or is it the constituent? I'm just being real, folks. There's no reason to speed in the city of Hartford. 187 crashes due to speeding. Speed fatalities in the town of Hartford, 12. 12. Now, that's like another number that was associated with the 12, and that was aggressive driving fatalities, 12. So the aggressive driving fatalities were all due to speed. So these 12 people were speeding. Speed was a factor. Aggressive driving was a factor. A woman was killed horribly, okay, over by Sigourney Park. Kids stole a car, driving all recklessly through the city. All right. I think that there's a big need for increased traffic. Right? We should have the traffic division more present in the city of Hartford. Now, that's what I would ask for as the mayor. I, would have to have a conversation with the police department, with the chief, to figure out, what the policing strategy is and what the force would be. But I think that that is something that you would want to, if you look at the statistics, and the statistics go back to 2003. But we live here and now, and so I went back a year and now. But this is not good. Speeding injuries in the town of Hartford, 122. 122. Now, they have these statistics for each town. We don't have the time to go over this like I would like to. I could spend 17 hours going over this. But I do know this. When you cross the border into West Hartford, what happens? People speed right up to the border, and then they go the speed limit. They speed all the way down Weathersfield Avenue until they get to Weathersfield. Everybody knows not to speed on Silas Dean Highway. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows not to speed. Once you get to Weathersfield, and go down Silas Dean. People don't speed in Bloomfield. They don't have the music blasting in Bloomfield. They make sure both headlights work in Bloomfield. Both tail lights work in Bloomfield. They make sure all the tail lights are working, headlights are working. Your side runner lights, signal lights are working when you're in Windsor. In Hartford, you don't even need a license plate. You just get in the car and go. You can speed, ain't gonna be no problem. Police not gonna chase you. You do whatever you want, Hartford. Lawlessness. Broken window theory. We're gonna get to broken window theory because these things are all important. That's why you need to watch the program, the whole program. I understand people tune in and out. That's the nature of this type of program. But if you watch the whole program, it all fits together. And it's on the public record. This is why you can't have a little cookie cutter policy. Because cookie cutter policies don't really amount to anything unless it's law. All right? The cookie cutter policy becomes legislation that can be, enforced. Because there's nothing worse than legislation that has no teeth. You write up a law and then there's no money for it and there's no way to enforce it. So it's useless. Like pimples on the cow's behind. What good is it? It's no good at all. Right? Any law you can't enforce is useless. But the laws those are our rules. So if you're going to have the rules, then they should be followed. It's like having a football game where the referees don't call what goes on. Like, I'm a Patriots fan. All right? But a lot of people don't like the Patriots because they say that the referees are part of the team. You got the 13th man on the field at all times when you're in a Patriots game, right? Who the referee, right? Well, that's an unfair advantage. If the ref doesn't call the Patriots for aggressive, illegal moves, but calls the other team, as an unfair advantage. So everybody's got to be treated equally. That's the beauty of the law. And by the way, it is the law that makes us a democracy, not our freedom, the law. Because it is the law that levels the playing field. Everybody's supposed to be treated equally under the law. Now, when you have law enforcement officials not equally applying the law, you have chaos, disparity, a sense of I'm not being treated like everybody else. And this is where the problem happens. This is where the problem comes. So it's odd to me that in all of our surrounding suburbs, when it comes to traffic violations, people have a totally different mindset than they do in Hartford. And it's unacceptable to me that, well, Hartford's different. Hartford is not different. Human beings come to Hartford. Human beings live in Hartford. And they follow the same law. The people in Hartford follow the laws when they're in other parts of town. I mean, in suburban towns, right? But when they come to Hartford, so increased traffic division, making the police officers more visible, more traffic stops. All right? I'm not talking about profiling. It's hard to profile in the city of Hartford when everybody in the city is just about black and brown, as they like to say, right? So if there was going to be profiling in Hartford, you'd be pulling over white people. By definition, everyone in Hartford is just about brown skin. A minority, right? Hartford's a majority minority city. So, of course, if you stop people in Hartford, the likelihood is that they are people of color, but that's the demographic. But if people could see the police officers doing those, doing it, the old traffic stop, you drive up, you see them, it changes everything. Ticket people for speeding. City needs revenue. Start putting some speed traps up. Unexpected. And start ticketing. People will slow down. A traffic bump, that's not, to me, an alternative to people following the law. Some people have 3 traffic bumps on their street. There's one street in Hartford, this real influential street in the North End. Got 3 traffic bumps on that one street. 3. Heavy hitters live on that street. Elected officials live on that street. And, so there's 3 traffic stops, 3 traffic bumps. That's when you know you rate. William Clark, everyone please ask whether or not Department of Motor Vehicle should be or could be held more accountable for their actions of putting a license in the hands of people who clearly are not experienced enough or ready to be in the so-called fast lane. Of city driving, much less highway driving. I believe that the Department of Motor Vehicle in every city in the United States should have retesting of licensed drivers every 15 years, and a person, excuse me, that a person chooses to drive. So his idea is that every 15 years you be retested. I think that there might be some. Now, there's a difference with the Department of Motor Vehicles, not City of Hartford, as somebody points out. Somebody in response to his comment points out that it can't be done. Department of Motor Vehicles, a state agency, Hartford is a town. It could still be done. You could have some cooperation. We do have representatives at the state level. We have our Hartford delegation, whose job it is to pass legislation that's going to be beneficial not only for the state, but in particular for Hartford. And I think that the state could benefit all the way around. When you look at the statistics that are right here for the number of vehicle crashes and the number of people who are dying and getting maimed and injured as a result of vehicle crashes, not only here in Hartford, but in all 169 towns around the state and on our highways, there may be some justification for retesting of individuals on a more regular basis. And it could be a revenue generator. Now, I'm not one for, reckless taxation, but you do need revenue now. You can put a toll. All right. So, what if drivers had to be retested? I wouldn't make it 15 years. I'd make it every 5 years. Every 5 years. Next week, we're going over the city charter. We're not going to go over the whole charter, but we're going to go over the mayor's office and city council. The mayor and city council. That's next week's program. Because a lot of people have no idea what the charter says. They also don't have any idea what the laws are as it pertains to driving. New rules come out. People don't know what they are. They just get in the car and they drive. But I think we have enough accidents and enough reckless driving to warrant some sort of increase in maybe people need to be retested. They're going to raise the speed limit on the highways because no one pays attention to the 55-mile-an-hour zone. And so people are going the speed limit, and even those that are going above the speed limit, people are flying past them. And it creates a safety hazard on the highway because you're doing 70, speed limit 60, and everyone's going fast. And they come across some slow guy going the actual speed limit, and it creates a hazard if that person's in the middle lane. So they're talking about raising the speed limit. I think it's already been done on several major stretches of road. Now, the conspiratorial mind says they're doing it in an effort so that people get from point A to point B in the same time that they would driving 65 or 60, 70 or 75 once they put the tolls up, because you're gonna have to stop to pay the toll or slow down significantly to go through the toll booth if they have the electronic tolls. All right. So in order to make it seem like it not adding to your trip, they're gonna raise the speed limit. That's the conspiracy mind working there. All right. But the rationalization or the justification is what I said the first time, because of the way people are darting in and out. So people are there's total disregard for the law. Brighter minds than mine sat up there and came up with, in an effort to make life better for everybody. That's what the law does. It makes life better for everyone. And the laws were hashed out. They were argued back and forth by all kinds of people, and people settled on the rules. And these are the rules. These are the rules that should be followed. So people can't drive right, then something needs to be done in terms of they're speeding all over the place, putting people in harm's way. And Williams says that every 15 years, people should be retested. This creates revenue for the Department of Motor Vehicles. Wow. Great minds think alike. Right? It creates revenue for Department of Motor Vehicles, but it also assures that each driver is current on the driving laws. Right? I mean, if it's the right thing to do, more than one person is going to have that right? The right thing is always going to, the best practice comes about because of a whole lot of people trying a whole lot of things, and there is always the best way to do a thing. Always. So best practices, all right? And is in compliance with how to implement them. So do people know what the laws are, what the driving rules are, how to implement them? Do people even know that bicycles are a legal vehicle on the road? Do you know that you have to give a certain distance between your car and a bicycle when you go around the bike? Which means if there's traffic coming, if you're on a 2-lane road, the road is the bike lane. You don't need a special bike lane. The street is the bike lane. And so if you have to slow down and wait till there's appropriate spacing for you to get around the bicycle, that's what you do. You don't just drive past the bike. Right turn, driving without lights on, making a left or right turn from a lane from the wrong side, right turn from a lane on the left side, double parking. This one pisses me off. It's not my words. That's the author's words. This one pisses me off the most, especially when just a half a car in front is a totally open parking space. All right? People parking double park. And there's a whole open parking space for them to pull into. And they double park. If people were given citations for these kinds of things on the regular, it would diminish greatly. Ike Herbo. Now, this is yesterday on Facebook. He writes, if anything happens to me, Hartford Police Department did it. I'm back in my hometown, Hartford, Connecticut, where I get harassed for playing my music. I've been getting harassed ever since. I've been up here, which is 5 weeks tops. But it's okay for them to put me in the Hartford newspaper to make Hartford look good, shaking my head. Last week, I had an officer come up to me and tell me that my music was a problem and why I have to go stand at the location that I was standing in. Like, what am I doing wrong? I was slammed and thrown in the cop car on my back, shaking my head. My ribs was bruised. They never read me my rights, which I explained to the officer. And he said, I don't have to tell you SHIT when you downtown. I felt less of a man. I spent the first 3 hours of my birthday behind bars for doing something good. What's the whole point of doing good? I tried to get my instrument multiple times, and they had different excuses. Now they're telling me that they're holding my horn for evidence This can't be real. I've been through too much, and this right here is hitting me hard, shaking my head. When they took my horn, they took my life. I just want to die and be with my mom. I'm so depressed. Hartford Police Department, I hope you're happy you stopped me from doing something good. Shaking my head. Now, the person tagged me in the replies, which is why I'm reading it. Now, Hartford has an ordinance. Article 7. City ordinances. You know, rules, regulations. You can look up these ordinances online. There's a whole city code. All right. Prevention and skip that one. Article 7, street performances and display of flags. Division 1, general. It gives the sections. Section 31-201- through 31-215. So section 31, 201 to 215. Revised. Division 2. Street performances in public area. Excuse me. Section 31-216. Definitions. The following words. All right, now I'm skipping over a lot of this stuff. Perform includes, but is not limited to, the following activities: acting, singing, playing a musical instrument, pantomime, juggling, magic, dancing, and reciting. Public areas, which include sidewalks, parks, playgrounds, and all other public ways located in the city as appropriate. Then it gives the code, cross-reference, definition, general, purpose. The purpose of this division is to encourage The purpose of this division is to encourage, and permit street performances in public areas. That's what this is the city code. This is not my opinion. I'm not saying that it should be encouraged. That's what it says. See, the rules and the laws are there for everybody, but they got to be enforced for everybody, and everyone needs to follow the rules. See, part of what's going on in this country is that everybody wants exemption from the rules. You don't get exemption from the rules, you change the rules. If you don't like the rules, then you need to go and change them. That's the process. Every year the state legislature introduces bills, they go on to become law, and every year they retire bills. The laws are changed every year. City ordinances are changed all the time. One way, street. Next year, it's one way north. Next year, it's one way south. Following year, it's a two-way street again. All right? Things change. Times change. People change. Conditions change. So the rules change along with it. But right now, the rules are saying we want to encourage street performances. Now, they didn't just pick this out of thin air. I'm sure there was all kinds of people down at City Council talking about these things, how we need to have performances outside. It adds spice of life to the city. I remember when I lived downtown in the Richardson building, back in one of the earlier renaissances in Hartford. Okay? It used to be a group called Street Temperature. They used to play jazz at Brown Thompson Food and Drink Emporium's patio outside, where the mix master was. It went from the G Fox through the Brown Thompson building, which was the Richardson Mall, and from the Richardson Mall into Sage Allen. And you could go to Sage Allen, the Talk of the Town restaurant downstairs. And they had the little walkway that you could go down. Okay? There were street performers all over the city. And lunchtime in the summertime in the 1980s was just, the Hartford was the place to be. It was music. It was all kinds of nice. So, you know, it would be nice to have that back, have that sense of culture. But if you are aggressively stopping street performers, then the message goes out, knock it off. Aggressive panhandling. Now, my understanding is that he became belligerent. I don't know. That's what I was told by people I trust in terms of information. But I haven't seen the incident report for myself. So, you know, until we see the incident report, we don't know. So allegedly, he became belligerent and wouldn't heed a lawful command that was given. So half the force came down there to make sure they could put him in the cruiser, I guess. I don't know. I was told that the three beat cops that were downtown are good people. They get along with folk. They're easygoing. All I know is what I've been told. All I know is what I'm reading and what I've been told. All right, so I'm not empowered to launch any investigation. But depending upon what the strategic initiative and plan is for the city, your law enforcement officers enforce the rules and the laws. Now, I believe that there is an undercurrent as an observer that wants a certain perceived element out of downtown. Things don't happen in a vacuum. All of this goes to the issue of public safety. And so public safety is comprehensive. It's not just how many people got shot. Traffic, all right? Emergency policy for terrorism. When you do natural disaster, what happens if if one of the levees give way during the flood? You know, all these things are public safety, emergency protocol, all these kinds of things. The purpose of this division is to encourage and permit street performance in public areas. Permitted locations. Performance may be permitted in outdoor public areas in the following zoning districts: C1, B1, B2, B3, B4. If the zoning code is changed or new zoning districts created, the division will be amended to comply with such changes or amendments. B, a performer may not block the passage of the public through a public area. Now, this is where Brother William Clark was talking about knowing the rules. All right. What are the rules? Now, as somebody who many, many years ago did street preaching, I knew when I got out there what the rules were. I knew what the rules were. I know what the rules are. Because when someone comes at you, the law is on your side. But you got to know what the rules are. And I'm not suggesting that this gentleman did not know what the rules are. He's a street performer and a musician. And the musician circle in Hartford is tight. At least that's been my experience with them, because I've covered musicians in this town for decades. Okay, taping the wonderful genius that is the music community and the arts community that is in this city. And it, like any other community, has issues. But as a whole, There's pure genius in this city when it comes to musicians. Totally untapped. All right? Totally untapped. And to some degree marginalized. As rather than to see the potential within the entertainment assets that are in this city, those that are in positions of power seem to look at them as just mere minstrels for their entertainment. But I said this when I ran for mayor before. I stick by it. Hartford has the potential to become like Motown. Not only in music, but also in the performing arts and in content creation for the new frontier for moving images in movies and things along that line at production. Hartford has the potential to be off the chain with that, and to me, that's my vision for how to turn Hartford, the city of Hartford, into an economic engine with the creation of content. I mean, that's my personal vision. I mean, that's my vision for the city. But my vision isn't the only one, right? But I think it's more than viable, and I know folk who I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to go down that road. But things can happen in Hartford. A performer may not block the passage of the public through a public area. If a crowd gathers to see or hear a performer such that the passage of the public through the public area is blocked, a police officer may disperse that portion of the crowd that is blocking the passage of the public. If the blocking of passage persists, the officer shall cause the performer to relocate to a less congested area. It shall be unlawful for any performer to totally obstruct streets and sidewalks or to or to interrupt free passage along them. Okay? This is against the law for the performer to block up the sidewalk. Right? Put, like, you know, a 4-piece band out there on the sidewalk, and you got to walk into the street to get around the band. But, you know, if you're playing a trumpet or a trombone on the street, you know, it's hard to take up the whole sidewalk with a trombone. D, no performer or group of performers shall perform at a distance of less than 200 feet from another performer or group or performers that already is performing. So it's like I'm on the corner of 777 Main Street, right? The old, Hartford National Bank. I remember I went in there and I got bad service, so I closed my account. I withdrew all $50 out the bank. Attitude was wrong. So I'm gonna see the manager. I'm gonna see the manager. The manager came. I said, "I'm gonna close out my account." Now, it would have really been something had I had, you know, a couple million in the bank, but I didn't. I just had $50. I wasn't gonna be disrespected, so I took my money. I took my money out the bank. So I didn't like their attitude. But if you're outside that bank performing on one corner and somebody's on the other corner by the old CVS, the old CVS, on the first floor where they have that nice big open space on top. I don't know if it's still open. We at one time thought about putting Hartford Public Access there, but we wound up over in the north end on Sargent Street. But that was an actual site that was looked at. Would have been downtown. They wanted too much for the rent, as I recall, and it just wasn't conducive for a television studio at the time. That's about 200 feet, maybe. Maybe not. But if one group is there, you can't just roll up on that group and start performing. It's against the law. Call law enforcement officer and enforce the law. Street performing shall not infringe on events for which a permit has been issued, so as not to detract from the stated purpose of the permittee or permit organization. So if you're having an event that you paid a permit for and a street performer comes, so maybe you're having a permit for, maybe you have a permit to do sidewalk cafe with coffee. Let's say Blue State Coffee decides they want to have an outdoor event. They get a permit from the city, and they're serving a super duper coffee out there, and the street performer comes, and the street performer's performance is interfering with the event for which they got a permit. You can ask the street performer, could you please move someplace else? I have a permit for this event, and you're disturbing my business. He refuses to go. Call police officer, explain police officer explain to him, move him to another location. At the discretion of the Director of Public Works and the Commission of Cultural Affairs, certain designated areas may be excluded from further performances. A performer may accept contributions during the performance. That's not my opinion. That's what it says. All right, you cannot stop him from accepting contributions. If such occur in a permitted area as provided in section 31-218, will not constitute disorderly conduct under the provisions of section 29.5. It is not disorderly to receive contributions. So aggressive panhandling is very subjective. I think it is aggressive to come up to my car when I'm coming out of Walmart. Trying to guilt you into giving. Right? I mean, you come out of Walmart, I don't care how you come out of Walmart. You got to go through a whole cavalcade of folk. Alexa, define cavalcade.
The noun cavalcade is usually defined as a procession of persons riding on horses, in horse-drawn carriages, in cars, etc.
Yeah, that's the right use of the word. Cavalcade. I got to go through a whole cavalcade of people to get, like, you know, onto the main thoroughfare from folk standing there panhandling. Okay? Other people might feel, oh, wow, man, let me help this guy out. It's cold. He's out here in the cold. He ain't got nothing. Even if he has something, he's out here in the cold. Goodness, here's a little something for you, brother. I'm sorry that you're in that. I hope that if I in your condition, people should shine the light of grace and goodness upon me. God bless you. Here, all right. Totally subjective. So one man's aggressive is another person's just idly standing by with a sign. They don't want to feel guilty for walking by. Or maybe they walked by for 5 weeks and he said, thanks for helping out. And they took that as aggressive and called police. He's allowed to have conversation. All right. Because you see, this touches on something real touchy. And this gets into something that I've been an advocate for a long time. There's only one thing that really sets me off, and that's free speech. I'm a free speech advocate. I've walked off of air shifts on the radio station, broadcast radio station, real radio station. I walked off in the middle, I took the headphones off, set on the table. Program director came in and told me, I want you to start talking about stuff. I don't like that subject matter. I said, well, you do the show. I took the headphones off and walked out, took the engineer with me. Because I'm paying for the engineer to get up here. I pick up the engineer, bring him here, pay him. All right. Well, I wasn't paying the engineer, but I picked him up and brought him. All right. Had to stop at the 44. He probably watched it. That's why I had to clean that up because he wasn't getting paid. All right. But I had to stop at the 44 every day so he could get some snack on the way home. Okay. He'll bear testimony to that. Took the headphones off, said, let's go. Huh? Come on. Let them do it. We may not be coming back here. But he can do the show better than I can. Then he's doing it. We need to switch jobs. I'm going home. Come on, let's go. Come on, tell me what I can and can't say. That's just me. That's a pet peeve of mine. It's always been a pet peeve of mine. All right, my kids are like that. So it's difficult sometimes for me to have conversations with them when you. Because everybody is like, how are you going to tell me what to say? How are you going to tell me what to think? All right? Music is an expression. It could easily be said that music is speech. And to ask someone for compensation on the street while playing music is speech. That's a free speech issue. And the city ordinance, city code, gives the musician a right to do what he was doing. I find it highly troubling myself. But that's just me. I find it highly troubling. Your calls when we get back. Stick and stay.
Hi, my name is Tyreek Marquez. I am a member of Hartford Community's That Care Youth Leadership. For the past 27 weeks, we have been examining the intersection between education, poverty, violence, and trauma in Hartford. I have learned a great deal based on research we have done, but I would like to tell a personal story. On August 27th, 2008, I attended a parade in the north end of Hartford when bullets began to fly and one person was killed. 6 people were injured, including myself. I was 7 years old and I was shot in my head, leaving me with partial paralysis, something I still live with every day. I struggle, but I overcome, and I am no different from any other teenage boy. This is why I do things in my community, such as awareness events with my mom and the Victims Against Violence group. I also do things with HCTC because we want to see change. Thank you for taking the time to hear my story.
Eight 860-944-9797. If you want to call, you can at any time. Even if I'm in the middle of a rant, you can call. I'm used to doing a 3-hour program, so to me, we're halfway through, so we got plenty of time. Plenty of time. Community policing. We got an FBI bulletin here. It talks about something that was done in Baltimore, Maryland. And pretty interesting. Fighting fear in Baltimore County. The COPE Project. Alexa, how do you pronounce COPE?
I pronounce that cope, but text-to-speech is always improving, and I might not have it quite right.
COPE. See, the COPE Project. One could pronounce that COP-E, right? COP with an E. Fighting fear in Baltimore. A new role for police might very well be that they identify all problems in the community that might cause fear and disruption and address them as part of their duties. Wikipedia. Someone's speeding up my street. Community policing or community-oriented policing is a strategy of policing that focuses on building ties and working closely with members of the community. A formal definition states, community policing is a philosophy of full-service, personalized policing. Full-service, personalized policing, where the same police officers patrol and work in the same area on a permanent basis. From a decentralized place, working in a proactive partnership with citizens to identify and solve problems. I'm reading this from Wikipedia. The links are on the you can click on the links and get the same information I have. I put them on there. So it doesn't matter what you're watching us on. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest. Doesn't matter what you're watching us on. The links are right there. The central goal of community policing is for the police to build relationships with the community through interactions with local agencies and members of the public, creating partnerships and strategies for reducing crime and disorder. Although community policing mostly targets low-level crime and disorder, the broken window theory proposes that this can reduce more serious crime as well. Now, the broken window theory is the idea or the notion that, you know, if you fix the broken windows, it's likely to do more to preserve the building, right? If the building is there and has a broken window, before long, all the windows are broken, and then the whole window frame is gone, and then there's interior degradation to the building. So before long, the whole building becomes abandoned, dilapidated, and destroyed. People start tearing pipe out the building, taking bricks, this, that, and the third, all because of a broken window. Hello.
Yes, good night, Stan.
Good night. How are you?
I'm doing all right, and you? See, you put the number up, so I would assume you're taking phone calls.
Yes, I'm taking phone calls.
Okay, I just want to address something that could kind of tie into some of your topics that you're talking about. I guess a long time ago in the 90s, Dr. Osagai would always advocate the need in Hartford to establish a satellite office similar to something as a link to the legislative office building in the Capitol. And he was at the time addressing this to State Representative Kenneth Green. And State Rep at the time, Kenneth Green, came back and said he felt that Hartford really didn't need a satellite office because you have basically
a satellite office for what?
Well, something to deal with issues within the community, political issues, social issues, economic issues, and you would have a paid staff worker working in the satellite office under Dr. Asagai's recommendation, and they would report a lot of the issues and some of the concerns and some of the solutions back to the legislative office building. But you'd have some form of a building within the community, because Asagai was always telling State Representative Kenneth Green he felt it was difficult for times for people to get organized, to come down to the legislative office building and testify and back up the support that Representative Kenneth Green was looking for.
Now this is Cuba?
This is what Cuba had advocated. This is way back in the 90s.
Right, so point. What is the point, Jonathan? I'm going to have to push you along. We're going to pretend this is talk radio.
Well, I'd like to get your opinion. Do you think it's something that would be good or is needed in the city right now? Because you have a lot of different issues.
No.
And I guess sometimes people feel if you can resolve some of your issues within your own community, instead of looking for outside sources to resolve some of your issues, that might go a long way.
I don't believe. The answer to the question is no.
Okay.
Because Hartford is... Have you ever been to the airport?
Say that again?
Have you ever been to the airport?
I've been to Bradley many times.
Have you ever gotten on a plane?
Yes, I have.
Now, when you get on the plane, do you have to go to the gate where the plane leaves? Or does they bring the gate to you?
Well, I went to the ticket gate. You have to go through that form of the gate.
Now, Hartford, the whole entire city of Hartford, you could pick it up and set it inside the footprint of O'Hare International Airport. And I say that to say,
a million times.
Right, and I say that to say this. Hartford is not so big that you can't get from one end to wherever something important is happening. Children do it for school every single day. They go from wherever they live to a school building. They go from wherever they live to work. But they can't go from wherever they live down to the legislative office building or down to City Hall. You have to have a satellite office in the North End or in the South End or in the West End because people won't go to the place where laws are made to affect their life if they have to go more than 3 blocks. If they're not willing to go 3 blocks, if they're not willing to go downtown for that kind of change, they're not going to go 3 blocks either. First, you have to have an engaged community that cares. Now, we could talk about community building, but you don't exacerbate the problem by making it something where people have to do almost nothing to actually be involved. To me, it's counterproductive to do that. And it says that the people you're talking about, and particularly if we're going to talk about Dr. Kuba Asagai, okay, so are we saying that our people don't have enough get up and go to be concerned enough to go down to the state legislative office building? Is that what he is proposing?
Well, I have a pretty good memory, and I remember the conversations what Dr. Asagai was saying, and to counteract what you just said, Dr. Asagai has felt, and I think I kind of feel this to some degree, not 100%, but I am leaning on this argument too, that many times people in your community who are not really politically aware or politically motivated for whatever particular reason, they don't really feel that comfortable going into the legislative office building.
That's unacceptable, Jonathan. That's.
But but the point is, the big picture is you want to try to work with people where they're at. Now, I know you don't believe in hand babying people, but I think if you have people in the neighborhoods who are not motivated to go And sometimes Guy could be right. You go down to the legislative office building, you're looking for a particular representative.
Here's my pushback, Jonathan. Here's my pushback. There's a young man in this city who most people have heard of. His name is Reverend A.J. Johnson. He is a community organizer with Christian Activities Council. There are residents in this city who had housing that was substandard. And they were living in those houses, and some of them just kept their mouths shut because they are not politically motivated. They feel uncomfortable complaining. They feel that, you know, they don't get what they get and deal with what they have and keep their mouths shut so nobody gonna come take what we have from us. And he went in and they organized. And they took on one of the biggest landholders in the city, an absentee landlord out of New York. And they took on the city of Hartford. And they took on HUD. And Dr. Ben Carson from HUD came to Hartford and talked to them. That's what happens when you organize. So we need to talk about community organizing and maybe reestablish some of the community organizing groups. But that means that your focus as a city is on bettering the community. There should be not a single person in this city who is a constituent that has a fearful attitude for expressing their wills, wants, passions, and desires to those individuals who are elected to represent them. And if they feel that way, it is the responsibility of the elected individuals to go out and do the organizing themselves if they have to. It's empowering people that needs to happen, not catering to their fears and a sense of feeling substandard. Now, there are some people who want them to feel that way because they then become dependent on said individuals. I think people need to be empowered. Just because you don't have a lot of money doesn't make you a second-class citizen. So what we need is organizers to empower those individuals who feel that they can't go downtown and speak for whatever the reason. It can be done. It was just done.
Well, I don't disagree with that, Stan, and I feel like right now I'm kind of speaking for Dr. Osagai.
You know, let him speak for himself.
But I do have some agreement on some of the things that Dr. Osagai would advocate, and I think the big picture, forget about the satellite office, and I think that was just one example. He felt, and I feel that this on the same way, and this goes to elected officials, representatives, and state senators. Osagai, along with myself, feels that the issues in the community needs to be resolved within the community. The community now puts together their own agenda that they feel is needed to be advocated. That agenda now is handed to the representatives who represent you in your district.
All right, I got you. I got you.
And if those issues down at the legislative office building or the LOB or the Capitol has not been passed or towards the satisfaction of the community, like Dr. Osagai was saying back in the 90s, then the people in droves go down to the legislative office building.
Okay, let's take your scenario, Jonathan, because you're leaving out a very major portion. All right, so where's this group of people with these issues?
A group of people are the people that's in the community where they live at.
Yeah, well, when are they going to come? When are they going to make their issues known? Where's the declaration of the issues, Jonathan?
Yeah, well, that's the big problem.
So it takes the community to do that. You don't want outsiders coming in to do it. So I had people tell me this. This is a direct quote. a direct quote. Quote, we need people like DeBronin because he a good friend with the governor. And he could get money from the governor. And that's what we need. We need someone who could go and get stuff that we need. And then the community do good. And he gonna do right by black people. He gonna hire, they're gonna do black community real good. Because if we help them get them in there, then they'll do what we need. I can't tell you how many people told me that. Now, is this the community that you're expecting to come up with this manifesto? Are you working with the community? Now you know Cuba Ostagai worked with the community, and where's he at now? Where's the change, Jonathan?
It hasn't changed, but I'm just saying.
Okay, I all due respect, I think Dr. Ostagai is a brilliant individual, but at the end of the day, where's the end result of the theory? Because we have leaders in the community. We have leaders in every single one of the 76 communities ethnically in this city. But if people feel marginalized, because one thing you can't take away from this whole conversation is that this is the fourth poorest city of its size in the country. It is in the grip of poverty. And people in poverty feel like second class until people like A.J. Johnson come along and empower them. And then they rise up out of the ashes and take control of their lives. And that's what Hartford needs. It needs real leadership on every level. Whether you're talking legislative, whether you're talking executive, whether you're talking elected leadership. It needs business leadership. It most certainly needs a new level and new, better grade of spiritual leadership and clergy leadership. Like AJ, who are willing to roll up their sleeves, stop the monkey talk, and actually do something. Because until something like that happens, until people that know the needs care enough to do something for people to help empower them, they're not going to just all of a sudden be empowered, Jonathan.
Yeah.
They just don't know. They're not second class. They just don't know. There's people in the city have no idea of the names of our city council people. They don't even know their names.
And you see that as a part of the problem, too.
It's a huge part of the problem. You can't expect people to be engaged in something they don't know anything about. And if you're trying to empower people,
yeah,
okay, and because this is the group of individuals that we're talking about. Hartford is a city of poor people. That's why it's so easy to come into this city and take advantage of it.
Well, you know, it's the same example. If you're illiterate, that's a major problem. If you don't know how to read,
it's a huge problem. It's a huge problem.
Okay.
So when you have people like, you know, I was going to mention names, but I'm not going to do that. When you have people who spearhead literacy programs and their programs are defunded, you have to ask yourself why. Why would you defund a literacy program that is making headway and designed to help empower people to be better contributors to their community? That's community development. I'm going to get into this when I get to economic and community development, because the community needs to be developed. So is city governance, is city government just looking at Hartford as a bottom line on a ledger, and that the people that are here are just an inconvenient truth? like Native Americans on the land when foreigners arrive? Just get rid of them so we can mine the gold, take the pelts of the wild animals, get the wood and all the precious metals and materials? Is all you see in the Middle East a strategic oil reserve, a strategic national security interest, and bomb the people on the land so that you can have it for your own? I mean, if that's how you see Hartford, then you're not going to try and help the people. To me, if you're representing people, then you have to meet the people where they're at. It's not Greenwich. This is not, Kent, Connecticut, or Simsbury, or Glastonbury. It's Hartford. So what are we doing to empower people? I don't mean a program over the Christmas time so that the poor children can eat lunch. I mean helping them so that next Christmas they don't have to depend on the city for lunch.
Well, Stan, I just think personally, and I've seen it with my own eyes when you had some elections, and I remember when President Obama was running for president in 2008 and 2012, you could barely get in the door. The lines were so long, of people just wanting to vote. And then when you get into your local elections, whether it's, mayoral or city council, sometimes it could be more crowded than others, but most times the turnout is pretty low. So I think there's certain things that energize even the people that you feel don't know the city council people, even people that's barely able to read or write, comparable to other things. And I think the approach sometime, and we all have different views on how we need to go about trying to resolve the issues. And, Dr. Oxagai is a very brilliant person. He has experience, but he was raised up in England where they do things a little bit differently than we do things here in the United States. And I think he was trying to bring the British system to some degree here to America. And when people was telling Dr. Oxagai he needs to get on a boat and go back to where he came from, and obviously Dr. Oxagai is not the easiest person to get along with, when you don't agree with him. I'll be 100% enough to admit that. But I think when you have very excellent views too. I mean, what you mentioned about, things in the community, we have leaders and we need to deal with spiritual issues, and you compared A.J. Johnson's approach and how he's been effective. But I still think you look at the big results, Stan, and you don't get caught up into statistics. It was a bad day for public safety here in Hartford today. Many days, there are very good days where you don't have people getting killed and you don't have big drug busts. But I think we have to be honest. We have some fundamental breakdowns, and, you can only do what you know how to do. I mean, you're running for mayor, but you need people to vote for you too. So you can't, you're not going to be appointed mayor. You have to become elected mayor.
Jonathan, I understand that. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the issues and why the issues are present and why they exist and what is the fix to the issues. Conversation is not a fix. The difference between AJ and a whole lot of other folk is he doesn't get caught up in the conversation. He's doing something. That's why I brought him up. Folk can say whatever they want about AJ. Not only is he doing something, it's working. So people can have theories. They can talk about what needs to be done until they're blue or black in the face. Where's the action item? Where's the executive move to cause the change?
Well,
this is the problem when people are successful at a thing. Once they're successful at a thing, then it's proof that a thing can be done. You see, what AJ did could have been done by anybody before him, because what he did isn't rocket science and it's not new. It just, someone had to do it.
Right.
So until that action came, folks was living in misery. Now, how many folk got to continue to live in misery before folk get up and do something? People voted for Obama because, like this pack of gum, if I offer you one stick of this gum, 2 sticks, one of these tastes like dog mess, the other one tastes like cat mess. Now, which one do you want, Jonathan? You don't want either. Well, what if I tell you got to eat one, whether you want to or not? So you better pick what? Pick which one would you prefer, since you don't like either. And that's what people are presented with on election day. Then comes along somebody like Obama. He is a candidate that people wanted to vote for. It's not rocket science. They stood in line. If they ran out of ballots, they didn't care. I'll wait. Because they wanted to cast their vote for President Barack Obama. If you give constituents someone to vote for, they will vote. They're not going to vote for someone who's not going to move an interest forward that doesn't concern them or make their life better. So those people you got to drag out to vote. People want a better standard of life, but who's actually going to do something about it? North Hartford has been redlined for decades. There's not a single person in elected office right now, mayor, city council, state representatives, state senator, governor. Now, go back to the Rowland administration. Go back to, pick your administration. How far back do you want to go? That doesn't know what redlining is. Yet North Hartford continues to be redlined. That's not an accident. It's by design. Who's trying to do anything about it? Who even talks about it? North Hartford doesn't exist in a vacuum by happenstance. There's purpose there. It's purposeful. And there's an active effort underway to relocate them folk. Real talk. All right? So are we trying to help people or are we trying to profit? Now, people have to help themselves, but it takes extraordinary individuals to be willing to be self-sacrificing to accomplish that. There are a few in Hartford who do that. They don't get, there's no parade for them. They're not on the front pages of the paper oftentimes. Sometimes they are, but they're not generally on the front pages of the paper. Okay? But when you have people who are making a difference in the lives of other people by putting them first, because they identify their need, and their need is born out of a problem that needs a solution, and it's that solution that brings about vision. Vision comes as the end result of fixing what's wrong. If there's nothing broken, then there's no need for a vision. The Bible says without a vision, the people perish. So if you don't have a way to fix the problem, the people will suffer from the problem. People are suffering in Hartford because there's a lack of vision to fix the problem that relieves their suffering. Now, there's a vision for all other kinds of stuff. There's a vision to get buildings built in Hartford. There's a vision to get new people in here who could do less of a rent here, but there's no vision to help the people. Where's the vision by the current administration to make a difference in the lives of the children of this city of Hartford, where the mayor is willing to stand with the superintendent before I say something about it publicly? Got 22,000 children in this city, and he takes a back seat because he wants the superintendent to fail? Hartford's a small town. I know what I'm talking about. Every wall in this city has an ear. I'm not speaking out of turn. Are we working together for the greater good and the benefit of the people who call Hartford home? I say no. And until you get a different caliber of leadership that cares about the citizens of this city, nothing's going to change. That's why nothing has changed. Because people don't look at empowering and making the lives of the citizens their number one priority, given the state of the citizens in this city.
Yeah.
And until that happens, we'll be having this discussion time and time again. And nothing will change. North Hartford Main Street looks the same as it did the day I drove down there for the first time in 1979. It looks like the alleyway. Like where's the front of the buildings? They must be on the other side. Because you drive down North Main Street and look how it looks. Now, that wouldn't be so bad if it would get better. But what makes it so bad is as you drive down Weathersfield Avenue, it's starting to look like North Main Street. You drive up Park Street, it's starting to look like North Main Street. We're not talking rocket science, simple maintenance, community engagement, neighbors looking out for one another, community building. If you don't build community, you'll have disunity. And disunity is fractured community. And before long, you'll have what you have in Hartford. Hartford will become Camden if something doesn't happen soon.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've never been in the Camden.
You don't want to go to Camden.
Yeah,
Camden is not a nice place.
Yeah. No, actually, I have been. I have driven through there and stopped there as far back as 1985. But I mean, that was a long time ago.
Like going to Detroit.
Yeah.
Detroit was so bad that people were stealing the wires out of the street lights. The copper wire out of the street lights. Whole sections of town, lights weren't working because they took the copper out. Wait times off the chain. Murder rate off the chain. These things can be stopped. Hartford is nowhere near Detroit. But Detroit didn't get that way overnight. All it took was a couple of corrupt administrations in the wrong place at the right time, doing all kinds of schemes, getting involved in all kinds of madness, and before long, the city is in the state that it is in. Hartford is salvageable, okay? But when it finally gets turned around, will the people who call it home now and love the city, but just don't know what to do, will they still be here? That's the question.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, whether it's about Hartford or any other place, somebody told me a long time ago the economic system when they were developing Adrian Landon, and he used that as a partial of an example. The economy and capitalism is like an express train, and it's not waiting for anybody to get on the train. Now, if you have the means and the resources to get on the train, just like what you did with your AccessTV.org network, you've given people an opportunity, myself included, to be able to produce and host programs. but at the same time, you're moving at a different direction. And if people are not ready to engage in what you're looking to do, you're not going to stand by and just hope that people come along. So I think you said A.J. Johnson as, I guess he's a community activist or community leader. I don't know what you want to call him. But,
he's a community organizer.
He's a community organizer. And, everybody's not cut out to do that.
He doesn't need everybody. It just needs, there's plenty of people who could be doing what AJ is doing. They just aren't. And when I say plenty, I don't mean like, 600 or 700. There's people who are in leadership positions. They choose not to exercise that leadership in a way that empowers folk. There's a difference in leadership that empowers and leadership that exploits. So a constituency can be a group. A constituency is just a group. Okay, generally tied to a body politic, but it's just a group of people. So it's a constituency, a means to power. I got a constituency of 500 people, and these 500 people, I can get them to vote for you, but you're going to have to throw something my way. All right? So now I become a gatekeeper for those 500 people. Now, the 500 diminish, my power diminishes. It's no different than the coal mine operation. The coal mine owns the coal mine. It owns your house. It owns the company store. It owns the bank. It owns the doctor. It owns the church. The minister gets paid. You start saving up a little bit of money. You got enough money for a little down payment. Guess what happens? The company lays you off because the company knows how much money you have in the bank. Then finally, once you spend down some of that money, you go back to the company, you ask them for a job, and they say, well, let us see what we can do. And they engineered the whole thing to make sure you were always dependent on the company, on the mine. And they'll work you until you get black lung and die. Then the company minister will have a nice funeral for you, and the company will give off a little bit of a pension until finally they had some problems with the pension. They won't even give you that. And lo and behold, your whole life was working for the company, making the company rich. Now, you just transplant that. That same mindset is not limited to the coal mine. Many community leaders have that same mindset. So instead of moving an agenda forward that actually moves the community from a place of stagnation and dependency, they capitalize on the stagnation and dependency so that they can become empowered off of the community. Since someone's going to be making money off the community, may as well be me. So the community never moves, but the community, they look to the leaders to help them, and then the leaders aren't helping them. I can say that without fear of contradiction because they haven't moved anywhere. It's no longer my opinion. It's no longer anecdotal. I can point to 30 years of fact. Where is the community at the behest and help of quote-unquote leadership that's supposed to be moving the community forward? It's exactly where it was when I got here. That is a tragedy at best. Tragedy. Tragedy. To me, it's unacceptable. I can't sit idly by and do nothing. Now, I'll give it my best shot. I'll say the things that need to be said. I step out in faith. Say all of the. I don't have any problem stepping on toes. That doesn't. Friends has never been a big thing. I love friends, love people, but it is what it is. The best friend anyone can have is truth. People are looking to move from where they are to where they can be. Calvin Lovejoy sacrifices, does all kinds of work for the community. But he's only one man. But imagine if you got all these people that work together. And they're all over the city, Jonathan. They're in the north end, they're in the south end, they're in the west end. They're downtown. They're everywhere. There's communities throughout the city who want something better for themselves in Hartford. But their elected representatives don't seem to care enough to listen to them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's problematic.
Yeah. That's deep, bro. I mean, I can't disagree with that. You know, I ran across a few obstacles, but I stayed persistent sometimes when I really want something. You know, when I put my mind set forth to go after, I go after it hard. When I don't put my mind set forth to go after, I don't. So I can kind of fall into the category of some of the people. Of some of the people in some areas, and differently in other areas. But I just brought that up as I was just thinking about the old days of WKND radio in the 90s and, you know, Dr. Sakai, what he was always advocating. And I just, let me just bring that issue up about the satellite office in the community. And I think one example you had, it's not quite the
And then I'm going to move on,
same
Jonathan, because people will be complaining to me.
They did put the Johnsons, I forgot what they call it, the Johnsons Community Center where Henry Brown and Marie Kirkley Bay was at on Martin Street when they was dealing with a lot of issues. I don't think that's a satellite office, but I know that was that little Johnson Center building on Martin Street.
I think that's the center that Representative Marie Kirkley Bay spearheaded.
Yeah. Well, she was in office at the time, and she was, you know, had an office there, and she was there at certain times during the week. But you know, the big picture is it's a much bigger problem than just like you say, putting a little satellite office and trying to advocate people to get, you know, mobilized and come up with an agenda and then have it, you know, pass and see changes. There's a lot of things that go towards blocking those things from happening at certain times. And maybe, not maybe, it's been proven that, you know, Hartford is not a city where the powers to be wants the majorities to really be fully empowered. And like you said it before, you know, poverty is a big business. They really don't want poverty to go away.
Poverty, there's a lot of money in the poverty industrial complex. There's money in the prison industrial complex. There's money in the education industrial complex. Where there is money to be made, you will find people standing in line to make it. All right, so there's nothing wrong with making money. Absolutely nothing. It's a great motivator. Capitalism creates wealth beyond imagination, and particularly from any system. However, when that money is made through the exploitation of those who they're supposed to help is when the system gets out of control. And there are mechanisms of control. Government is supposed to be the referee to make sure these things don't happen. But if government becomes corrupted, then your referee is corrupted. So, you know, if I'm sitting in an office talking about, well, I can move you into this piece of property for the right, you know, for the right deposit in my offshore account. Now I'm not working in the community's interest. I'm working in my interest. All right? If you give the community a bad time and we burn your building down, okay? There are some very dangerous and evil people in play here, Jonathan.
Mm-hmm.
All right? Now, remember, we have no problem bombing a country into the Stone Ages to save a nickel on a gallon of gas. Do you really think that folk lose sleep making money off the poor?
Mm-hmm.
Kid waiting for a haircut, catch a ticket. Next thing you know, he's resisting arrest because he asked a question. And since we got open beds that need to be filled, We need 20 to be picked up off the street someplace today. Make sure it happens. All right? Now, there's plenty of criminals out there. If you're going to fill the beds, fill them with criminals, not with just any old body. This is, of course, where community policing can come in. Knowing the community. But ultimately, community policing has to be done by the community.
Well,
I have to focus on community policing next week, the whole show.
Yeah. But one thing to keep in mind, though, when you're talking about community policing and you're talking about public safety and even traffic violation issues, somewhere along the line, I guess I got a tendency of calling people's names, and Cliff Thornton comes to mind. The drug problem definitely has to be looked into when you're trying to resolve some of these issues.
Jonathan, we know we need to look into these things. Let's talk about action items, not ad nauseum, things that we know are wrong. They're not going to be fixed by the next mayoral election. All right. Drug policy is, is a lot bigger. You're not going to just go and arrest your way out of the drug problem. All right. We can do community building. We have the skill set. We have the personnel. We have the will and the desire to do community building, if the vision and leadership is there, to do community restoration with less focus on, let me rephrase that, with equal focus on the communities that we have on downtown.
So, yeah, but you're saying you can do community policy and or community policing and deal with public safety issues in a drug-infested environment. Is that what you're really saying?
How does the environment go from drug-infested to not drug-infested?
I mean, you can clean up the drug-infested environment. I mean, that's
you change the lives of the people that are in the environment. You remove the reason for self-medication. It's nice to think of North Hartford as being a drug-infested environment, but the fact of the matter, Farmington is a drug-infested environment. And so is Simsbury with OxyContin and the opioid crisis. It's happening all over the country. The United States is a drug-infested environment. They just aren't in poverty. Poverty is the bigger problem in North Hartford. The underground economy that is associated with the drugs is a very real issue. But as long as it's keeping many people afloat, Jonathan, there's no one. Now this is just real talk, because I'm old enough to have real talk. I have to cage my words. You take all of the drugs off the street tomorrow, could be done. It's not like folk don't know who these people are. How's that going to impact the environment? How's that going to impact the community that's living off of that?
Well, I mean, when Cliff was saying you clean up the drug-infested environment, then you can start to plant the seeds of real.
Well, Jonathan, you know I love Cliff, and I love Dr. Osteguy. We are talking about what needs to be done to move the city of Hartford forward, and I am focused on what I can do. And I'll say to you and everyone else what many in my inner circle have heard me say, depending upon what team they are, because we have more than one team. But there's one team that's heard me say over and over again, I love ideas, but I don't need yours. So when you're ready to put your hands in the dirt and make your idea happen, I'll be here to help you. But there's no shortage of things that we should be doing and who said what that needs to be done. But what are they doing to make it happen? Nothing. Nothing. So that's how I am with ideas. I'll help anybody, as is evident by all of the programs I've produced over the last 30 years. I will help anybody that has an idea bring their idea to fruition. But I'm not making anybody's idea happen for them while they sit back in the corner of Ideaville. Yeah. So Conversation doesn't change nothing. Well, that's not true. Conversation is an action. Action starts with conversation. But if we're going to have people talking about, I don't need to hear what, this, that, and the third. Do you want to help that happen? That now we can talk. There's people in this city who are willing to lift. All they need is some help from the right, from the right people.
Yes, Stan. But Stan, you mentioned you have this economist that you're going to introduce to people at some point. And I'm looking forward to, I guess, finding out who this person is. And I don't know when you're planning to have this economist.
I tell you, he is Norm Kirkland. Look him up.
What's his guy's name again?
Norm Kirkland.
Okay, Norm Kirkland. I'll look him up.
I know you will.
All right. Norm Kirkland. And I never heard of him before, but I'm definitely going to look him up, and I look forward to...
There are hundreds and thousands of economists that no one has ever heard of.
Right.
All right, Jonathan, let me go to the questions that people have put on the thread here. There's a whole lot of them. I'm going to take them from the top.
Okay. All right, then. Well, like I said, I'm going to listen to your show, and glad you were able to come on tonight. And, there's some issues that we would be able to discuss. And I know how you feel about satellite office and community
I don't mind a satellite office that gets something done.
Right. Well, that was the whole point, too, now. It was not just to put a satellite office, just to put a satellite office.
But the satellite, I'm fundamentally against it. If someone talked me into it, would be because it's going to produce something. And if it's going to produce something, I want to see a result expeditiously. I don't have tenacity when it comes to waiting for results.
Mm-hmm.
Set the goal. How long you need to get there? All right. Then when are we going to start? And if it doesn't work, I'm not going to roll with it anymore.
Yeah. Well, Stan, I know you're kind of against this proposal, but I think your location where you're at could be a possibility of a good satellite office. You're very close to the legislative office building.
Are you talking about my house?
Yeah, well, part of your house. If you were to be part of it, I don't know if that's the right fit totally because
I'm not going to turn my house into a satellite political office, Jonathan, for folks to come and just, hang out and have tea and have ideas. There's City Hall for that. It's not only but 4 blocks from where I live, so they can meet me at City Hall. I think my wife and kids would like to have the privacy of their own home,
Yeah. Well, that's what I was thinking, too. You have your family there. That's not totally the right place for it. If you had another building next door to you, maybe that might be a better alternative.
I got a building 4 blocks from me. It's called City Hall.
City Hall?
I mean, it's in the middle of town. It's easy to get to. It's on the bus line.
Right.
And you will be able to find me there almost any time. I'm a hands-on kind of guy. I'm not trying to become anything other than the mayor of Hartford. I want to become governor. I want to become a senator. I want to become a congressman. I want to serve the people in the city that I love. That's the only reason I'm running.
Yeah.
Because the city needs leadership. I think I can provide it. And
one last thing, and then I'll hang up.
This your last thing?
Yeah, I'm going to have to get in contact with Simi Bogle Osagai and have her tune into your show and have her call in. I don't know the health issue of Dr. Osagai, but I'm going to pass the word to Simi Bogle Osagai.
I love to talk to Femi Bogle Osagai, Dr. Femi Bogle Osagai.
Dr. Fuller, you're right.
All right. I love talking to her as long as we're going to talk about solutions and what we need to fix. We do not need an analysis, strategic, analytical, or otherwise, of what's wrong. We know what's wrong.
Right.
How are we going to fix it?
Well, what would be better is to have Dr. Osagai call himself, but I don't know his health issue. But
you can have a conversation with Dr. Osagai on the phone, Jonathan. We don't need to do that here.
So you don't need him calling your show.
I don't mind him calling or anyone else as long as we're talking about how we fix a thing, given the constraints where we find ourselves.
All right. I'll let them know that, too.
Right.
Okay. So you have a good night, man. Okay.
All right. God bless you, Jonathan. All right. That's my man, Jonathan. Now, of course, the phone number's on the screen, and the way this works is if you want to call in, just call. Your call pushes whoever's on the phone off. Right? And, of course, you can always leave your comments in the comment thread for Facebook. We're running about 10 seconds behind on Facebook and 60 seconds behind on YouTube. So what you all are always watching is about 10 seconds delayed, at least. All right, let's read what we have here. A belated Merry Christmas. Same to you, Brother Raphael. All right. Heavy. Oh, hey. Oh, hey. I gotta get close enough to see the screen. All right, let's see here. Hey, J Stan McCauley. Forgot it was Thursday. Packing up the kitchen. Okay. Big share. Greetings. Okay. Make sure we get everybody up to speed here. Yep, no speeding past town line. Tailgating, yep. All right, make sure I don't, amen. Participate in your community like you, J Stan McCauley, A.J. Johnson, referring back to those that are not from the past is a moot point. Just my opinion. Does nothing for us. Move forward with the current situation. Yep. That's true. Action. Yes, we need. Oh, that's Brother Charles. Okay. We need wholesale leadership. New wholesale leadership in our beloved city. Plain and simple. End of story. Comments. These are statements, comments. Truth will set you free. Calvin Lovejoy, A.J. Johnson, and this young, energetic leadership need now turn up the heat. All right. I'm just running through here to make sure that there's no questions. Some good comments, no questions. City needs bankruptcy. There's a good book. Where's the book? Is the book here? This is a good book on that subject. Detroit Resurrected. This was given to me by somebody. I won't mention their name because they asked not to be dragged into the political battle. If I told you their name, you wouldn't know them. They brought this book by my house. They are a singular individual. It's a good book. It's reads like a novel. Well, kind of. I shouldn't say that because I don't read a lot of novels. It's 250 pages. And it's fascinating. The story is fascinating. I read out of necessity. It's laborious to me. And so I've been reading a lot lately because I need to know some stuff that you can only know by reading. But this is a good book. Detroit Resurrected, to Bankruptcy and Back, bankruptcy probably would be the best thing for the city of Hartford. The powers that be are not going to let that happen, though. We witnessed that with what just happened. There are too many people who do not want contracts, pensions, and all those types of things pushed aside. Now, it may very well be that Hartford winds up in bankruptcy because if you ain't got no money, you can't do nothing. But there are things that can be done, and I'll wait until we deal with economic development before I get into that, because my area of expertise is not economic development. And so we will defer on that subject to the experts. But we're going to have 2 public meetings where this is a very deep subject and what an alternative would be. And it isn't a state bailout. And I will let you all know, and we'll do that. But Detroit's a little bit different than Hartford. Hartford doesn't have any hard assets of great worth and value like Detroit did, because the museum in Detroit was owned by the city, and therefore all of the articles of great value in it. Now, Hartford doesn't really have anything like that. So, you know, bankruptcy would provide the city, an institution, with some protections. It would totally remove the, you know, elected leadership from any kind of fiscal role, but that's already, for the most part, kind of been done through the Municipal Oversight Review Board, that any expenditure, I believe it's over $100,000, has to be approved. They have to approve the budget, school board budget. All of this stuff is being looked at by folk who don't live in Hartford, don't represent Hartford, but have Hartford's best interest economically. And there is a certain element that must be accepted when you consider the historic reality as it relates to where Hartford is, where it was, and how it got there. Is it reasonable to expect the population of Hartford to vote for government that can be held accountable, and will they hold that government accountable? Given past actions. And so these are the kinds of things that people at high levels think about when it comes to allowing bankruptcy or not. And are you going to allow the people of Hartford to be in control of their economic future when time after time after time after time after time after time after time it's been demonstrated that they will not do the right thing? Will they do the right thing in the future? Hopefully, maybe. But are they doing the right thing now? I mean, did they do the right thing in the past? No. No. Harvard's had problems with its schools. The school's been bailed out. Now the schools seem to be normalizing, but, you know, you have this ebb and flow. It keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper in debt. Folks are leaving the city. So in my opinion, the city's been put into financial servitude. They structured a means by which to hold the city financially in check for 20 years. But that, of course, requires that the state legislature and all incoming administrations hold true to that. And that could change at any minute, and Hartford will be right back in the shape that it was in. So we're not sure what the current governor will do. I mean, we won't know until he's in office and actually starts making some moves. Everything is speculation until it's done. So the state legislature and the governor could undo the $550 billion bailout, and Hartford will be stuck once again with the fiscal liabilities or responsibilities or obligations that it has, and then bankruptcy may become the only alternative. It's not like you just, you don't have, there's to be no, you don't have the money, and there's no means by which to get the money. So, what do you do to get the money? And so when you consider some of these alternatives and you're realistic about it, how do you get people to invest in a city where things are going, where things are starting to go downhill badly and fast? One could say that there might be a method to the madness. You trash the city, bring down the property values of everything in it. You kind of have a fire sale opportunity for people who want to invest, and they start to bring their money here in big investment, and they start pumping it into buildings that are going to bring about some sort of revenue and build a grand list. It may not be what people like, but, you're doing like triage type stuff. And, I think everyone, if people had access to why stuff is happening, there might be better acceptance of it, but the why isn't being told to us, because I think that if people knew the why, they would rise up with pickaxes. So just do it. I'm trying to give benefit of the doubt to the current administration. I think that's only fair in a format like this where we're talking about certain things. I don't think that's the best way to go about it, but, as they say, it's easy to be an armchair quarterback. Until you're in the driver's seat, you don't know what the road is like. So, there's always a pundit and always people talking on the side as to what should be done and what they would do. But, of course, they're not in the position to do anything other than to make commentary, myself included. But, as they say, be careful what you ask for. All right? I guess someone thinks I look like Richard Pryor. All right, Hartford needs to be for sale. Well, that seems to be it is. I think the book needs to be audited. Definitely the books need to be audited. But the books being audited brings about some serious issues. I agree with that. I think the books need to be audited. But talk like that is scary to people. Because you start auditing books, and guess what? You start uncovering stuff. It's sort of like a special counsel when you're the president of the United States. I think we should have a special counsel for what kind of ground beef you eat. Now, once you start looking at the ground beef, well, actually, what do you set your temperature on your refrigerator at? Oh, well, how much electricity do you use? Well, how do you pay for the electricity? Well, do you have any investments in electrical companies? Well, where are your first children born? Oh, how many properties do you have? Oh, then at the end of it, you find out that they had used ice cubes that they didn't pay for, and now they're going to go to jail. And so that's what the books, auditing a book for cities like, because there's past people who done criminal element in corruption, and the books will bear that out. So you do a forensic audit of the books, and you start talking some real, now you start talking some dangerous stuff. All right? Particularly as a candidate. Okay. But I am on record as saying such. Yeah. Well, the mayor people ought not have delusions of grandeur, myself especially. The mayor is limited in his role and his scope. He is not a sovereign like the President of the United States. He may be a sovereign in some areas as it pertains to personnel and certain actions and activities in the city of Hartford, but he definitely isn't that over the finances, particularly now. You know, there are more people above the food chain that have, how shall we say, sway and influence. And one has to ask oneself, is this the hill you want to die on? Because I am here to tell you that if you look at those books, people are going to go to jail. Probably as they should be. And it is those people who you have to push back in order to get to the books. And if they're anything like most people, like most human beings, human nature being what it is, you'd be surprised what people will go through and what they would be willing to do to protect themselves and their interests. And so we live in the real world. And, you know, okay. Prior Hartford resident. Someone might be saying hi to him on the thread. Okay, I got it. Well, that might be an interesting way to do it. That's a great idea. And I know with you it's more than an idea. So, the key to that is knowing the law. This conversation I'm having might be above some of you, but the person I'm talking to knows what I'm talking about. So I guess that's I mean, when Freedom of Information is used correctly, you can move mountains. But the current administration, state administration, Malloy administration, brought FOI inside. They moved it. And so, you know, the powers that be are going to do their level best to protect it. Doesn't mean it can't be done. But that's an offline conversation. Well, you know, I think constituents should demand that the books be audited now. That way the next administration doesn't have to worry about it. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea to me. The books need to be audited, especially in light of the role of these establishment politicians. Someone has to be made accountable for the egregious conditions of Hartford's finances. Now, there's an action item that actually can be done. I agree. Timing is everything. Well, yeah, yeah. When you go to combat, where the battlefield is just as important as the weapons that you have. So sometimes you don't need all the weapons. You just need to be strategically positioned with what little weapon you have. So timing is everything. Mm-hmm. All right. All right. Well, for those of us who like to talk, it means that we're a talkaholic in recovery. And there's nothing worse for a talkaholic than a can of Mountain Dew and a camera or a microphone. Community policing is related to problem-oriented policing and intelligence-led policing, and contrasts with reactive policing strategies, which were predominant in the late 20th century. It does not eliminate the need for reactive policing, although successful prevention can reduce the need for the latter. Many police forces have teams that focus specifically on community policing, such as neighborhood policing teams in the United Kingdom, which are separate from the more centralized units that respond to emergencies. I don't know. Hartford has the community service officer. I don't know whether they operate in a decentralized fashion or whether they are, ceremonial. I just don't know. But I know that at many of the NRZ meetings, you'll see them, and there are police, depending upon where you go, where you'll see them walking around. And but community policing as a strategy, to my understanding, is not deployed in the city of Hartford. I don't believe that the current chief, and I might be speaking out of turn because I don't know and I haven't had the conversation with him, so I don't mean this in the pejorative. I don't mean this in any kind of way to be negative to the current chief. But I don't know that is his view of, policing strategies. And there are different theories as to, how to do community policing. Let's look at some of the criticisms to community policing. Criminologists have raised several concerns vis-a-vis community policing and its implementation. On the broadest conceptual level, many legal scholars have highlighted that the term, quote-unquote, community at the heart of community policing is in itself ambiguous. Without a universal definition of the word, it is difficult to define what community policing should look like. Now, I define community as self-sustaining, self-policing, and self-educating. So if you don't have police officers from the community, I don't know how you have community policing. See, that to me, that's different from having an occupying force in the community who is stationed in the community in a garrison from which they deploy, like a little precinct. And then the size of the city has a lot to do with it. Hartford is a small town. So there should be like a hybrid. There should be, there should be an effort made. But see, these things come with leadership and a philosophical approach to what the community needs. Trust is a big issue. If the community doesn't trust the police, then you can't have an effective community policing policy. Others have remained skeptical of the political ambition behind community policing initiatives. For example, in 1984, Peter Tank Waddington cautioned that the largely uncritical acceptance with which the notion of community policing has been welcomed is itself a danger. Any proposal, however attractive, should be subjected. Where's mine? I need a bookmark. Oh, here it is. When I read, off the screen itself acts as a bookmark. So I need to be able to get from the, it's hard for me to read without a bookmark when I'm on the air like this. All right. Can't be good at everything. Any proposal, however attractive, should be subjected to careful and skeptical scrutiny. In particular, Waddington voiced concern that the community policing was merely a restoration of the Bobby on the beat concept, which had a nostalgic appeal because it was less impersonal than the officer flashing past in a police car. He said that the former was a romantic delusion because there was never a time when the police officer was everybody's friend. And there will never be such a time in the future. He also believes that order could only be maintained by the community itself and not by the police alone. Similarly, there are those who argue that community policing is unlikely to bring fundamental change to how police officers work. Some call it mainly a rhetorical device. There are those who argue that a progressive and democratic ethos of shared governance inherent in community policing run counter to central elements in police culture and more widespread understanding of crime and punishment. Yet another set of criticism revolves around the potential efficacy of community policing. David Bailey has argued that enacting community policing policies may lead to a reduction in crime control effectiveness, maintenance of order in the face of violence, increase in bureaucratic and governmental power over the community affairs, increase in unequal treatment, and the erosion of constitutional rights. According to Stetson, there is a major dilemma within community policing when practicing community policing. Police officers have the tendency to get too involved with trying to institute particularistic community normative standards. This, in turn, could be problematic in that it could entice corruption or vandalism now, or excuse me, or vigilantism. So, you know, you got a cop that's controlling the beat. He's easily corrupted. Not that cops are easily corrupted, but there are corrupt police officers. He could become a little Gestapo guy. Familiarity, people's rights not being read to them, things going on, because you build this from. So there's pros and cons. At the end of the day, to me, if you don't have a healthy community, you cannot have community policing. Because what you wind up is individuals from outside the community policing the community and viewed by the community as an occupying force. Then the police don't get the respect that they think that they are due, or that is even necessary in order to establish real community policing. So there needs to be a whole lot of work in establishing the community policing program within the parts of Hartford where most people think you really need community policing. So downtown would be a good example of community policing. You have police officers downtown because of the number of people. It's lunchtime, so you move police in there, make sure pedestrians move all right, people aren't heckled, this, that, and the other thing. And so a passing pedestrian or someone who works downtown, tired of the guy playing the trombone, says, hey, look, you guys need to do something about it, And so he, in response to the community, goes over to the guy. Things get out of hand. Next thing you know, the guy's sitting in the back of the cruiser. Long before there were police, the community did the policing. What would happen if you were in the community and you didn't belong there? Who ran you out of town? The police? No, the community. It'd be kind of like vigilantism. You don't do things the right way, we take you down to railroad tracks, tie you up, wait for the 950 Express to come through tonight. We're not going to run you out of town. You're going to get ran out of town. Right? Knock on your door. Who is it? You know who it is. Come on, open the door. What's up? Your time. Pack up. The car's over there. You're leaving town tonight. Why? You leaving town. And so vigilantism. So, I mean, and that's why I say you really need experts who have a history of working with the community, who understand effective community policing strategies, effective policing strategies. Because I am not of the mindset that the mayor is an expert at all things. He most certainly shouldn't be an expert at policing unless he's a former police chief. But there are people who are experts. And I think it's incumbent upon the mayor and the council to select, along with the community, to select the type of policing strategy that will work best for the city of Hartford, given the constraints and the dynamics that we have here. And if you can get broad-based buy-in from the people at play with open, honest, candid conversations about what those needs are, then you can have a working police force when there's an understanding that they will be held accountable to do the job that is expected of them. And the failure to do the job will be met no different with them than people working in public works department. You don't do your job, you don't get to stay here. I think that's fair. Okay? The police have parameters in which to operate, and when they abuse that power and authority, they need to be held accountable just like any other city employee. But until you do something to revitalize the communities that are impacted by crime, impacted by poverty, until you help to restore those communities, you're not going to get community policing, in my opinion. Community policing and gun rights go hand in hand. I tell you one thing, when communities that have guns, folk act right. I bet you one thing, won't be no terrorists coming into the hood. Go on up in the hood with your little terrorist self and watch what happens. And don't ever think that the community is not self-policing. The community is more self-policing than you may think they are. But we're talking about the sanctioned law enforcement organization providing the community policing, working in conjunction with that community as partners, and more than partners, working as an agent of the community to keep law and order and to enforce the laws on the fellow citizens who do not want to obey them. That's what we're talking about with community policing from my lens. That's how I think of community policing. And I think it would be an effective way to police, but we have a long way to go before we get there. Can we get there? Sure. With the right leadership, the right community leadership that's engaged, that understands the community, that speaks on behalf of the community. That leadership is out there. It's throughout the city. I've talked to them. They're throughout the city. But their vision for their community is at variance with the powers that be. So they get no support. What they do on their own or with limited help and limited buy-in. So nothing changes. If we had 3 officers working each shift in each neighborhood, it'll keep costs low and reform gun laws too. I think that's a legitimate conversation to have. Community-oriented policing, even though mandated by law in the state of Connecticut, is run independently by their respective municipalities. This is a real problem because there is no accountability. It's like the 167 zoning boards in the state of Connecticut. All right, so that's a blessing and a curse. Because it means that and here's where we test the strength of community. We know what should be done. There are people within the community, and when I say community, I'm talking about the broader community of constituents in the city of Hartford. I live in Hartford. I'm running for mayor in Hartford. I don't live in Simsbury. I don't live in Des Moines. I live in Hartford. So for those of you who watch this from around wherever, okay, I'm talking about Hartford. Now, we know that there are people in Hartford that get it. to talk about what the community needs. How we need to move an agenda forward that's, good for Hartford, good for the community. But the community has yet to demonstrate its political prowess in terms of voting for people who actually are in positions of power whereby they can hold accountable all of the elements necessary to make these things happen. So we are always talking about what needs to be done instead of doing it. You think they talk about what needs to be done in Simsbury? No. People pick up the phone and it happens. Now, people pick up the phone here in Hartford and it happens. It just ain't the broader community. That shows a level of dysfunctionality among that community. Can it be fixed? People have been telling me for years, absolutely it cannot be. I dismiss that. I believe it can be fixed with the right leadership. But it's a paradox. If it can be fixed with the right leadership, and then it requires the very community that the right leadership would be there for to do the right thing. But how do you get the right thing done without the leadership? So leadership has to emerge that can energize the community to put said leadership in office. To me, that's the first step. If you can do that, then the rest, in theory, could follow, with a full understanding that there are always going to be agents within the community who seek to undermine the success of what's being done. There is always a Judas Iscariot in the works. Always. Judas Iscariots should never catch people by surprise. Expect it. So what is the workaround when those individuals present themselves? Since there's an expectation of the emergence of said individual, there should at the very least be a modicum of control when said individual presents his or herself. So as long as you have that undercover, let Judas, let him come forth whenever he wants, right? Because Iscariot was never a problem until he decided to sell out Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. And know when I tell you, that was all political. The crucifixion or execution or murder of Jesus was political. That was high stakes politics. He was jamming up the works and they were going to get rid of him. And that's what they did. You think you can come in here and upset the apple cart? We will kill you. And that's a very real possibility. When you upset the status quo, they're not going to sit back idly and just let you push them off the edge of the cliff. They have too much to lose. So when we have the conversation, we need to be realistic about it. Not live in Disney's world, but in the real world. So the status quo has to feel, at the very least, that its interests are not going to be burnt to the ground. There is a theory that says, keep what you have, but as we move forward, let's include everyone. It doesn't mean that you can't build on what you have, but you no longer excluding people from the opportunity. So we level the playing field for everybody. And with the lead that you have, there is no reason why you can't continue to grow. But you just don't grow at the expense of everyone else. Now, if you think that's idealistic, then the uprising is delusional. Because he ain't going to let you just come in and burn everything down. It's not going to happen. We have experts in all phases of human life in our midst. All people have to do is call J Stan McCauley or me. This is Charles Barrow writing at the number there. You can call me at 860-944-9797 or him at 860-881-5592. We're never asleep too long. Please feel free to call us. Well, I agree. You'd be surprised what you can do when people work together. I mean, when the right people work together for a common goal, victory is not possible. It is inevitable. It's not rocket science. It really, really isn't. It's a numbers game. Can you count to 10,000? And who can you count? The political apparatus can count every vote they're going to get. And then they can look back and see the historical record in terms of who's likely to vote outside of that number. Once they're confident that they've got that number, then they move forward. Can you count the numbers? Can I count 10,000 votes? Or am I the term that's just escaped me. Am I I don't want to say activist. Well, I'll use that. Am I there's a term it just left me. They're the kind of candidate that, there's a kind of a candidate that has the votes of people who traditionally don't vote. And I can't think of that term. They're not, you can't quantify them. So, in theory, good weather always is on their side. Bad weather is always against the machine. The machine needs a good weather day. Activists. Is it activist voter? An activist? Maybe it's activist voter. I didn't want to say that, but maybe that is it. Where people come out because they've been, energized and activated, and they're going to make a statement. All right. So, like, say, for instance, the issue with deportation. All right. Or even better example. Kids get on the phone and they get 300 of their friends all turn up at the mall. Not just 1, 2 malls. Simultaneously. Right? And have fights. All over the mall. For sport. Now that's organizing. You can't quantify how many people are going to come. It's an unknown factor. How do you prepare for that? You can't. Right, we're going to have 1,000 police officers on the event that it might happen. When the organizers of the event are present, they're there. Everybody's just waiting for the call. It's like a flash mob. They see that you're there, so they adjust accordingly. They call it off and they come back tomorrow or later on in the night or when you go on lunch break. They're watching you. Okay, so the activist voter can't be quantified. But are there enough of them? A lot of people turned out for Obama. All right. So, this is not rocket science. It's not rocket science. You can count to 10,000. You can count 10,000. 10,000 votes is a landslide. In Hartford, landslide. Landslide. 7,000 votes could get you into the mayor's. On a slow turnout, 5,000 votes. You could become mayor of Hartford with 5,000 votes. Alexa, what is 200 times 5,000?
200 multiplied by 5,000 equals 1 million.
So you could, if you gave 5,000 people $200 each, it cost you $1 million. All right. So let's say you had $1.3 million in the bank, you'd still be a third of $1 million in the bank. You'd still be left over with $300,000. And just buy the vote, $200 each. So people will spend all kinds of money to try and get into 550 Main Street, and there's only two reasons for why one would do that. The power and control of the resources that come through City Hall, or for the good of the people. Those are the only two reasons. It's just like broadcasting. There's only two reasons to broadcast: to make money or to disseminate a message. That is it. Generally speaking, you cannot do both. You're either going to put something on that's going to win viewers, thus increase ratings and the cost of commercial time, or you're going to send out a message that's going to fall on the ears of very few relative to the whole. But the message is more important than the revenue. As long as you have enough revenue to support the enterprise of the broadcast, you put out messages. You're trying to either influence or educate or whatever it is, but it's not driven by money. But if you're in commercial television, commercial broadcasting, ratings dip below a certain number, you cancel the show. No matter, it's a business. I mean, entertainment is the vehicle, but it's a business. You need them. You're making money. Your show's not pulling in the numbers. I'm sorry, we're going to cancel the show at the end of the broadcast. You'll be on the air. We're going to go country music tomorrow, so thank you for your time. What do you mean? We do rap. We did rap. We're doing country tomorrow. The powers that be determined that they need so many country stations across the broadcast network. This is one of them, so that we can have the market that we need. So starting tomorrow, we do country. Format's all set. Thank you. Business. All right. So people running for office want to get in there so they can have access to the cookie jar. People run so that they can move up the ladder politically. They run so they can move to different positions. Just like in a regular company, people come in as a dishwasher, they move up to supervisor. Next thing you know, they're the department head. Then they move to another department and another department. Next thing you know, they wind up running the company. They work their way to the top. There's people who run for office so that they can work their way to the top. They do a pretty good job while they're there, but they do what they have to do. They go along, they get along, because if they ruffle if they tip the apple cart, they're going to be overlooked for opportunity to move forward. They'll take one for the team when they have to, because they ultimately are trying to move forward. They're not trying to do stuff what's in the best interest of the community. They're doing what's in the best interest of themselves and the party, or the powers that be, who can reward them by moving them up. So the candidate that comes along and say, we want to move an agenda forward for the people, you know, it requires the people to be involved too. Because you got a candidate runs for the people, and then day one you hear crickets. People are gone. So when we talk about community, there's a lot of work that needs to be done in restoring and building community in Hartford. A lot of people feel like the guy with the trombone. They feel like less than a human being because they've been marginalized, they've been dehumanized, they've been disrespected, and they just don't have a good sense of themselves. And that human capital has to be invested in, energized, and moved forward. And I think that as it relates to a healthy city, you need healthy communities. And if that's what's necessary in the community for it to be healthy, then that's what you have to do to restore that community. That may not be what's necessary in West Hartford. It may not be what's necessary in Simsbury. But it's what's necessary in Hartford. It is as much necessary as it is to get our financial house in order. Simsbury doesn't have to get its financial house in order. It has wealthy people and a good tax base, and so they're within their budget. So they don't have the same issues that we have, but we have what we have. You play the hand you're dealt. But all hands at the table have to be focused on how can we win for Hartford and the people that are here in our city. Short break, then we'll be right back.
Hello, my name is Destiny King. I am a member of the Hartford Communities That Care Youth Leadership Academy in the Young, Educated, and Determined to Succeed program. Over the past 27 weeks, I have been examining the intersections between education, poverty, violence, and trauma to develop policy and program recommendations. I served on the poverty work group, and the following is our recommendations. Organize resources to support entrepreneurs, expand efforts to provide highly qualified mentors for teens, to place priority on investments in affordable, high-quality childcare and early education, focus on giving people the tools to start new enterprises that will improve their circumstances and spur economic growth, as well as removing barriers to small business growth, repair and strengthen the safety net to make sure there are safeguards in place that apply equally to all people, reduce the large gaps between the very rich and the rest of society and make it easier for people to get into the middle class. Also, to address the gaps that persist for African Americans in educational attainment, employment, wages and income, family wealth and home ownership, health and infant mortality, and incarceration. Thank you for your time, and I hope you can support our recommendations.
860-944-9797. Give you one last chance. If you want to call, please feel free to do so. Of course, I'll stay here as long as you need to, as long as you want to talk about something, I will stay. Next week, the city charter. We'll go over community policing a little bit more in depth. We're going to have some ex-police chiefs come in. We'll have a criminologist come in. And when I say come in, I don't necessarily mean come in here. We do have the technology and the ability to get them on the air so that you can see them and they can communicate while we are live. All right, so they won't have to leave the comfort of their home, but they will have to be up to participate. So, and we'll hear from them. That's not to say that they couldn't come in if they so choose, but it's always easier to do this from home than it is to come in. All right. So 860-944-9797. Give those of you who join in late. That's the nice thing about this type of a format. If people tune in and out throughout the whole throughout the whole program, which is why the format is what it is. It's like talk radio format. You have people for 10 minutes at a time. 10 minutes is considered long. There's always people who listen to the whole program, but generally people listen for 10 minutes at a time. They drop in, drop out, drop in, drop out. So our program has always been formatted. The programs I do have always been formatted with that mindset. I'm out of radio, so that's my beginnings in broadcasting were in radio. So to me, this is a radio show that you can watch. But always want to give people opportunity, particularly critics. For every minute that we're on the air and the number is up, critics could have called, but they didn't. Could have called, but they didn't call. Should call. Let me cue up this music. I want to see what song I'm going to go out with. What about this one? Let's see. Let's take time to cue. That's not bad. That's not bad. I like that. We can roll out with that. All right, my friends, our time together has come to an end. I've been going to bed at 4 o'clock lately. I try to go to bed early. I can't. I just can't. Try as hard as I can. I've spent my whole life working second shift. My whole life, since I was 19 years old, I've worked second shift. Which means by the time I get out of work, it's midnight. I get off at midnight. By the time you clean up, get ready, this, that, and the third, and you part from work, it's 12:15, 12:30, right? And so by the time you get home, it's 1:45, 1 o'clock. You get in the house, it's 1 o'clock, and then you got to eat. But you come home, you chill, you relax, you got to wind down a little bit from the day's work. Then you find some quiet time, you get your food together. By that time, it's 2 o'clock. I've been eating dinner at 2 o'clock since I was 19 years old, and I will be 59 in January. That's a long time. My body is acclimated to that wave. All right. I generally get up around 7 o'clock, go to bed about 4. I get up at 7, 7:30, maybe 8. Then I take a nap. And then I take another mini nap. I take a nap at around between 1 and 2. I might take a nap for about an hour and a half. And then I take another nap from about 8 o'clock to about 10. I get my that's my sleep cycle. So I've always worked second shift. So I get most of my work done in the studio at this time, particularly now that I've dropped doing all of these programs at night and programs during the day. So we don't do one show a day now. And I only do one show a week now. So we've really cut back our production schedule to give me more time to be out on the campaign trail and do all those things that are necessary as we are all in for Hartford. That having been said, my friends, our time together has indeed come to an end. So, I will see you all next year. Okay? Next year, right here, next Thursday. And we will talk about the city charter. The role of mayor in the charter and city council in the charter. All right? God bless you all. Have a wonderful new year. And of course, a belated Merry Christmas. We're in the middle of Kwanzaa, so a happy Kwanzaa to you. Belated Hanukkah. Happy Three Kings Day yet to come. And of course, a very merry and happy and prosperous New Year. I wish for you and your family all that God has to shine and shower down upon you. May you and your family be blessed until we meet again. God bless you. And of course, the greatest city on earth, Hartford, Connecticut, New England's rising star. See you soon.